Yeah, this part of the reason for organising this conference was to report back on the work that friends and colleagues have been doing in South and West Wales for the last 18 months on developing a whole life, whole system recovery into practice approach, with very much of the values and principles and the need to think about what we're doing that was actually spoken about by Pat in his presentation. So we set out last year after this conference, because people said that they wanted something to continue after last year's conference. So we had discussions with many of the stakeholders in South and West Wales and came up with a programme of putting into practice a recovery approach, but particularly in terms of thinking, practice and systems. And today, this morning, is going to be an interactive session between the people that have taken part in these learning sets and yourselves. We want to make it truly interactive. It's not, you know, speeches or talks. It's very much in terms of people's feelings about what the process has been like, and their reflections, again, on critical reflection of individuals, organizations, and professions. So the purpose was to develop an interactive process of reflection, as I said, and learning, which involved working on the real life, whole life needs of people and the interests of service users, family members, supported by and using the knowledge and skills of small groups of many facilitators. It wasn't just one or two, there were many people that facilitated this process in both South and West Wales, and we're very grateful for the time and commitment that people gave to this. We initially proposed the establishment of 2 thematic learning and development sets with about 20 to 25 members in each, from a wide range of multi-agency, that was important, stakeholders in both South and West Wales partnerships that already existed to some part between health, social care and community organisations, family members, service users. We later established a specific community mental health team inpatient unit learning set in the ABMU partnership area. And people will, I hear today from that learning set as well, to talk about their experience and what they think of it. So the learning set program was to be launched in a symposium, and we tried to develop in that symposium what a broad and clear and broad understanding, consisting working definition of recovery philosophy, values and practice, not of something model called recovery, but in terms of the values and the philosophy and the practice that lies behind the recovery movement. This would try to members of the learning set would develop a common understanding, a value base and a vision of recovery into practice within a whole life, whole system approach. And this again goes back to actually the importance of the whole life needs of people, not just the health or social care needs, but the whole life in all the life domains that all of us enjoy in our life. So, the tenets of this program was, in terms of change the thinking, change the practice, and change the system. And to do this requires that these things are done at the same time, but more importantly, over time. Because this, as Pat has set out, if you like, this new way of a vision for the future is something which is going to take some time, because it's undoing a lot of the learning, actually, the historical situation that many of us have got into and be, to some extent, stuck in. So to identify what is whole life recovery and what it is not was important, who and why people need to recover, and do people want to recover? Perhaps there's an assumption that, from us that perhaps service users actually want to recover. And this very often they tell us is not the case in terms of how they see the interpretation of recovery, in terms, for instance, giving up benefits and going back to work. Some people don't want to do that. So I think it has to be very much an individual thing for people. And I think that by, if you like, professionalizing it, we have taken away that individuality from the whole essence of what recovery really means. That it only makes any sense if it's for the actual individual themselves. Its objective is to achieve health and well-being regardless of the degree of disability or distress of the individual. To accept that it requires a paradigm shift in thinking from pathology and illness to people's own self-determination, the importance of people's life stories, their human strengths, not weaknesses, hopes and dreams, using themselves to help others through peer support, and controlled by the user with support sometimes from professionals, but in a new role as partners, mentors and advocates, not as a clinician, but in terms of changing the actual meaning. Again, it comes back to the relationships, the importance of the trusting relationship between the professional and the user. And to think about that, it does need a changing thinking about roles, I believe. To reflect that it should be rooted in cultural, social, religious and ethnic diversity. That gives, and it only makes sense if it gives meaning to the person's identity, their belief, and understanding that their beliefs are ones which we should accept. They're not strange things if people believe in what we think are strange things, but we should actually accept the importance of the person believing in those things, and we're accepting it and understanding it, or trying to understand it. To understand that recovery is not just about regaining something lost. It is a process of development and emancipation. Even some people would describe it as discovery. And as our friend and colleague Mike Smith describes it, in terms of people that wish to thrive, not going back to perhaps where they were before, but moving forward and thriving in their life. To accept that to promote the recovery approach, staff should re-evaluate their role, as I've said, in the treatment process to one of negotiation, and also, I think importantly, of trial and error. Not everything works, but people should go on and find, as equal partners with the service user, actually things that could work or might work, and keep on trying until they find the thing that works. So we also set out to identify what contributes to the person's whole life needs and opportunities to recover, understanding and respecting and enabling a personal self-determination, and the importance, as some of our colleagues have pointed out in these learning sets, the importance of self-management and peer support is also absolutely critical to people actually finding their own recovery pathway, their recovery journey. Focusing on the fundamental of importance as was set out, the importance of building trusting and meaningful relationship. And this is the key, as Pat has said, this is the actual key to all the work that actually we are doing. Understanding and celebrating the significance of people's life events and stories. And so very often, service users and people tell us actually that people don't really know them as a person. They may know them as a symptom or as an illness, but do they know them in terms of their life experience and stories? Do they actually find that out? Is the person able to trust the professional to be able to tell them their actual life story and events? It's a big I think barrier to actually to actually moving forward. Myself and others' initial responses to the person's experience, what helps and what hinders in our relationship with service users. Reflection, again, critical reflection. To understand the importance of including family members in the trialogue of the therapeutic alliance. And all too often family members say that they're not involved, that actually people, in fact they're dismissed very often from that one-to-one relationship with people, and building, in terms of where the care and treatment plan, for example, that family members, are not involved because they have a richness of that person's experience. For God's sake, the mothers and fathers, they brought people up. They know a lot about the person, and they can help, and they can, in fact, enhance the actual, the actual healing and therapeutic process. And very often they're dismissed. And we've heard quite recently, actually, of a horrific story where, not a million miles from here, but actually 10 miles away, somebody was actually told that they should not speak during an interview with a user at all. They should not get involved. We should also reflect on the effects of our initial interventions, our treatments, but also reflect on our beliefs and our attitudes as well as what we actually are trying to do with people therapeutically. Breaking down the barriers of them and us, and very often this has come up during the learning set as being an issue to be resolved. The effects of some historical ongoing approaches that only leads sometimes to depersonalization, exclusion from communities and societies, and perhaps removal from actually the opportunities in life. To identify responses and enable the person to lead a fulfilled life with their experiences. What are the personal, professional and organizational barriers to putting into practice the values and principles of a whole life recovery approach? And we've learned during the learning set there are many of these. We know how difficult it is for professionals to work in the climate that exists today in the NHS in the UK, but not just in the UK, across the world actually, in terms of where the actual focus of the importance is on monetary values, is on on protecting the political nature of health services, in terms of not worried about things going wrong that will blame political parties, and we're sort of subsumed into this into this different climate that we're in today. So it's no wonder that professionals are struggling to provide this real time and space for good therapeutic relationships. I'll just skip through these. Anyway, you can read the rest of them. But this is what we tried to set out, and what whether we succeeded at all or not in terms of what people are going to tell you in a minute. But what do we need to do now and in the future? We need to continue this, and it is a cultural change in our societies, in our communities, and in the mental health services and the practices we use. We need to bring this about by the modification of a society, its communities and mental health services through innovation, invention, discovery and contact with other societies, their services and practice, learning from and with each other on this new journey, this new vision, if you like. The 1980s and 1980s vision for mental health transformation was deinstitutionalization in this country and in others, a few others actually. We successfully changed the institutional system, but the big question remains today. We now have new forms of institution in our procedures, our processes, our rules, our regulations, and our targeters. So we haven't got rid of the institutional barrier. We know, but have we changed the thinking and changed the practice? We need a new vision for the next 10 years based on the whole person, the whole life, and the whole systems approach, and also be successful with this, as we have with deinstitutionalization. We believe that we have taken a few important steps forward in these learning sets and other places and programs that have been developed and involved in the world by many, many organizations and people. What do you think about this? We need everyone's help to make this vision a reality. And we need this actual new vision that actually, and leadership to drive it. It's important that we all engage with it in this different way, an important way of actually moving the experiences of people with mental health forwards to more of something which we call a recovery approach. Now, the International Mental Health Network, I won't dwell on it, but there is some information about it. But this is our mission in terms of these three tenets of change. Change the thinking, change the practice, change the system through different approaches in terms of whole life, whole systems development and recovery into practice. This is our mission for the network with partners around the world. And we have now I think, Roberta, you said now we have partners in all the continents of the world. And people are wanting to do and change the same things. They have the same issues and problems. They have the beliefs to make things change, whether it's in Africa or in Asia or in South America, wherever it is. The issues are the same, and what people want to do are the same. There are challenges, there are barriers. Some of those are in still these institutions, not just the bricks and mortar of institutions, but institutions of the mind are things to overcome. Now we're going to hear from members of the learning set, and I said in an interactive session, and I hope that we all can take part. Thank you very much.